Welcome. I didn't want to walk in looking at my phone, but I needed to make sure and shut down the Kermit song there. I was thinking a lot about what song I was going to choose as my entry song, my fight song, and I landed on Kermit. I grew up watching the Muppets, and I love the Muppets, and I share a birthday with Jim Henson, and so I was really excited to use that song because it's playful and it's fun and it's light and captures the mood. So I've got a little cheat sheet with me here. Just bear with me. I wanted to make sure I won't be reading a script. This will be from memory, but I want to give a few thank yous before I proceed. So I've got my little table here. So first of all, Dennis Cooney, thanks for being a sponsor for this event. Alex Weeks for audiovisual. Lauren Hill, where are you, Lauren? My coach and mentor. Kevin Frazier, photography. Kevin's here somewhere. There he is. Kate for the microphone. Kate's somewhere. I saw her earlier. And of course, family and friends. So I just wanted to give a couple, not disclaimers, but just kind of what this talk will be and what it won't be. So Better Weeks Ahead is not, 90 days to rock hard abs, right? You're not going to be expected to, there's not going to be somebody in the foyer when you leave saying, hey, sign up for the seminar, right? So that's not why we're here. Though I will be talking about powerful and meaningful spiritual experiences and religious conversions, this is not a sermon. I'm not here to proselytize or preach or pontificate to you at all. It's also not, though I'll be talking about my involvement in AA, I'm not here representing AA, right? So this is not an Alcoholics Anonymous event. I don't represent AA, and I certainly don't speak for AA. There's one other thing I wanted to mention. What else? Yeah, so it's not a sermon, and it's also not a lecture, right? So though I'll be talking about and sharing a lot of knowledge, there's not going to be a test at the end, and it's not a lecture. So the first thing that's really important, and I say this whenever I share at group level, what I have to do before I start talking is I have to get honest. I have to get honest about where I am. Because if I don't know where I am, then I can't possibly know where I'm going. And so no matter how many times I speak in front of groups, I'm still nervous, right? I'm self-conscious, right? My Parkinson's tremor flares up. But I get to be honest today, and I get to tell people exactly how I feel, what's going on with me. And that helps take the power out of it. And I realized that vulnerability is the pathway to intimacy, right? By getting vulnerable with people and opening up with people, it allows them to get closer to me and allows me to get closer to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'll get to kind of what Better Weeks is and what it's becoming kind of towards the end of the talk. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to take, how's the sound, by the way, Alex? We good? Thank you. So I'm going to tell, it's unusual for me to be speaking with a mic, so just bear with me as I get used to it. So I'm going to tell a story, and I'm going to take you to some dark places. There's nothing in here that's going to be vulgar or gross. And some of you may have been to some dark places in your life and may have heard these stories before, but some of you may have not. But I promise you, like any good story, the hero comes out ahead. The hero wins in this story. I'm going to shut this off briefly. Those of you who also know me know that I always have a sparkling water with me when I speak. So I got to get that ready. So just bear with me here. I'm far more nervous than I thought I'd be. And by all means, check 1, 2. There'll be things in this talk today that might be horrifying and dark, but please feel free to laugh at things that are macabre, right? Don't feel like you have to be serious or be like, oh, that's terrible. I can't believe that happened to him, right? Because we're here to have a good time at the end of the day, and we're here to be joyful. So I'll tell a little bit about my story, kind of how I grew up and what I went through. And I'm going to situate this talk in a framework of problems, obstacles, solutions, and goals, right? And I'm not going to beat you over the head. I'm not going to be like point number one, problem number one, right? But you'll see as I'm telling the story kind of where the problems and solutions and obstacles are. And then the 3 themes, excuse me, The three themes that I'm going to explore and then I'm going to talk about are family, fitness, and faith, right? So family isn't just the people you're related to by blood or through marriage. It's people you work with, people you go to church with, right? Or Bible study. It's your friends, right? It's people in your community. Fitness, again, this isn't 90 days to rock hard abs, but I'm going to talk about diet and exercise, right? And then faith, right? You may be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, right? So I'm going to encourage you and talk about the importance of a faith practice. But again, let me state again, this is not a sermon, right? So I just want to make that clear. Okay, so let's get into it here. So I grew up here in town. And I had a wonderful childhood, an amazing childhood. Two things that my parents would always say to me are, we love you so much, there's nothing you could ever say or do that would make us stop loving you. We might be mad at you, we may not like you, but there's nothing you could ever say or do that would make us stop loving you. The other thing they used to say to me, especially as I got older and was getting up to no good and going out on the weekends, they would say, please be careful tonight because the worst thing that could happen to a parent is to bury their child. No parent is supposed to bury their child. And that really stuck with me, right? So growing up, if we're talking about the first F, family, I had a wonderful family, right? Like I was in Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and I played sports and I did well in school, a wonderful childhood. Around the age of 12, I started smoking pot and I loved the way weed made me feel. I loved the way it made me feel. It was fun and playful and imaginative, and I thought it made me more creative. I thought it made me more funny. I got involved in theater and music in high school. So I did a lot of drama. I played the drums, had a great time in high school. But as the drugs and alcohol kind of became more front and center, right, I lost interest in school. And so by the time I graduated, I wasn't headed off to college. I was just kind of hanging out and partying. I also really got into growing and selling weed, right? So now I'm growing and selling weed. I'm living at my dad's house. I'm not really doing much. I'm kind of just bumming around. I finally got it together and went out to the Napa JC first and then Santa Rosa JC. And I did well and I transferred to UC Davis. And I loved Davis and I took a BA in history there and really, really liked it. But right around this same time, I'm getting really into narcotic pain medication, right? So the drug use is really accelerating. And at this point, it's really hard to hide, right? So family members, I'm at, nodding out my mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving, which is not a good look, right? And people are saying things to me like, dude, you've got a problem with drugs and alcohol. Like you need to get help, And I was not trying to hear that at all. I was so convinced that I had it all under control. Right. So I come back to Napa and I start teaching. I enroll in a credential program at Sonoma State. I'm doing well there, but I'm continuing to spiral. So, I complete this credential program. I have a great job offering at Calistoga High and I turn it down because I want to sell and grow weed. So I just spent all this time and energy, building this education, this professional career, and I walked away from it. Well, a year or two goes by and I realized that was a mistake. And so I came crawling back to teaching and I was lucky enough, there's some people in this room that vouched for me. And I was lucky enough to get a job at Napa High, working with some really troubled kids, like all boys, juvenile hall kids that were at risk of getting expelled. And so I'm working with these kids, but at the time, the drugs and alcohol have just completely taken over, right? And I'm out of control. And so I got it in my head that it would be a good idea to protest gas prices by shooting out the windows of Hummers with a slingshot like a 12-year-old boy. Yeah. Okay, see, there we go. Yeah. Thank you, good. Let's loosen up here. Now, I've told that story a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've done all the work around that. I've paid restitution on that. That story doesn't keep me up at night, I can laugh at that today, but I was not laughing then. There was nothing funny about what was going on then. So I continued to spiral further, right? So I got in trouble for that, surprise, surprise. And a year later got a DUI, right? So now I'm on probation and violating probation. And it's just getting darker and darker, right? And so it got so dark at one point that I went into treatment. Like I couldn't get a job. I couldn't keep anything together. I'm heavily addicted to OxyContin. I'm stealing. I'm lying. I've lost all trust with family and friends. Like it's bad, right? And I went into treatment, and it was good. It was a good experience. And I got out and I said, okay, I'm good now. You know, I'm away from the drugs and alcohol. I'm fine. I don't need a program of recovery, right? And that didn't work. So got back into the drugs and alcohol almost immediately. And it just, if you know anything about the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction, it only gets worse. It never gets better. It's fatal, it's incurable, and it's progressive. So I continue to spiral in the disease, and I'm getting worse and worse and worse. And so now it's homelessness, right? So now I'm in a tent under the Maxwell Bridge in the town that I grew up in with a degree from UC Davis and a teaching credential. Let me try to take you into what that's like. All of you can think about what your own suffering and pain and embarrassment is like, but to me, that's indistinguishable from hell. Unemployed, no money, no phone, you know, stealing alcohol from Rayleigh's, right? To kind of stay a little bit well, to stay in the sickness. That continued until it got so acute that I was ready to get a little bit of help. And I say that because I basically went to the county and got on something called Suboxone. And I won't get into a big, long discussion of what that is, but I got some medication to help with addiction, essentially. And I thought that was sobriety, right? I thought that, well, I was on this, I'm not taking the OxyContin, I'm not drinking, I'm sober. And I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, nodding out in meetings on that medication. For those of you who don't know what nodding out is, it's when you're under the influence and you're losing consciousness. So this is where things kind of slowly start to turn around, where up to this point, right, you've probably seen a lot of problems and a lot of obstacles. Now we're going to start to see some solutions. But there's not going to be too many goals just yet. So I'm spiraling and spiraling. I go into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I meet a gentleman who's here tonight, and I won't embarrass him by saying his name, but he's become my best friend. And this guy took me under his wing and gave me a job with his company and tried to start sponsoring me to the best of his ability. And I was dishonest and deceitful and did all kinds of things that I could go on and on about, but I won't. But I was still trapped in that way of living, right? Even though I was telling people, oh yeah, I'm sober, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. But what was really cool is the seed was planted and things started to shift just a little bit, right? I saw other people in AA that had really amazing and incredible lives, right? And we're working the program. So, it got to a point where I was in so much pain and had been involved, just another sidebar here. I had been involved with another woman who was, I won't take her inventory or talk about what her disease was, but she was struggling, and we conceived a son together. Now, she didn't want to have an abortion, and I didn't want her to have an abortion, so we made a decision to give that child up for adoption. And I mention that because these are the places that my disease took me. And even though those things were really difficult to talk about and share with people, now I can share them with people, right? And the goal isn't to say, oh, look at me, I did this good thing, I got sober, I, gave this child up for adoption and didn't have an abortion and yada, yada. It's to give other people hope and to show other people that despite difficult things they may have gone through or decisions they may have made that caused a lot of suffering in their own life and other people's lives, that they can have a better life. So I'm reeling from that process from his name's Brandon, by the way, from giving Brandon up for adoption. And I'm flirting with sobriety. And I got to a point where I was in a tent in my sister's backyard on the phone with my sponsor and best friend. And he said, where are you right now? In a tent. Whose tent? Yours. Where's that tent set up? My sister's house. Okay, are you ready to get into action? Yeah. Okay, I think you should go into a sober living. I don't want to go into a sober living. I didn't ask you what you wanted to do. I just don't think it'd be a good idea for me. Buddy, your ideas, and I won't use the word, your ideas really suck. Right? And so I went into a sober living, and lo and behold, my life got radically better right away. I worked the steps, I went to meetings, I got a sponsor, I connected with some good people. This person hired me back to work for his company. But what I realized when I picked back up, which means to relapse, is that I never did a thorough third step. We'll talk a little recovery here. So the first step admitted we were powerless over alcohol, our lives are unmanageable. You'll hear people say that's the only step you need to practice to perfection. Step one is critical. I mean, if I'm not ready to admit that I have a problem, my life's unmanageable, I can't really go anywhere from there. But step three is made a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand Him. And this is what that looked like to me. God, help me with this drugs and alcohol thing. I'll take it from here. Right? That was kind of my attitude. And that didn't sustain me. That didn't sustain me. So after about 2.5 years, and I won't go into all the details of it, but I relapsed. And in the relapse, I started my own landscape company, and I thought I had it under control, right? Because I had this company, and I wasn't doing the hard drugs. I was just doing the legal, herbal, natural stuff, and all kinds of nonsense, right? So after a year of that, I was at my wit's end, back in a tent in my sister's backyard. Like, not kidding here. It was my own tent this time. It wasn't my sponsor's tent, but it was a tent, right? And had been lying to family about being sober, right? They thought I was still sober that whole time. That feeling of being deceitful to people, again, is indistinguishable from hell. So, wow, we're about halfway through and I'm finally starting to relax a little bit here. So I did the same things that I did before. I went into a sober living. I got back working with that sponsor and my life got radically better. And I did a thorough third step this time. We'll kind of transition into the faith piece in just a moment, a little teaser. So for the first year of that sobriety, so I'll paint the picture for what that looked like. Got sober on August 15th, 2022. September 3rd, 2022, Dad died with Parkinson's. October 15th, 2002, I keep saying 2022, I'm in a neurologist's office going, why won't this tremor go away? Again, indistinguishable from hell. And I'll never forget the neurologist, I'm like, I'm blown away, right? I'm devastated. And she just looks at me, she goes, well, it's not MS. Oh, well, thanks. It's not MS. That's comforting. So for that first year, I'm sober, right? I'm still running Weeks Landscape, still owning and operating Weeks Landscape, still doing well. Life's pretty good on the outside. Daily suicidal ideation. Suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety. Psychiatrist has given me a bunch of different medications. Oh, well, here, take more of this, take less of that. And I'm not here to indict Western medicine or the pharmaceutical industry. That's not my goal. But I just know that when I got off of a lot of that medication, I started feeling better. So here's where things really started to transform. So again, trigger warning, we're gonna talk about Jesus here. So, and again, to recount this story almost seems unreal because for my whole life, I had been basically what I describe as an intellectual elitist or an agnostic, right? Like I studied all about the history of religion and the history of Christianity. It was fascinating to me, but I just didn't think I needed or wanted any of that. I really, really didn't, and it was fine for other people, but it wasn't fine for me. So at about a year into sobriety, that same friend of mine invited me to a place called the Father's House here in Napa. And I walked in and the doxology was playing. Now, I'm not going to sing for you because you would all get up and walk out right now. But I walk in and the doxology is playing, and I will tell you the lyrics to that song because it's really short. And they are these: praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above, ye heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And I remember that song from the Methodist Church growing up. I remember my mom singing that in the choir. And I broke down in tears. I was weeping incessantly. So now I'm in this church with a bunch of people I don't know and I've never met, right? And I'm weeping like a child. So I'm closing my eyes and I can't get the image of the crucifix out of my mind. Like I'm rubbing my eyes and it will not leave me. I listen to the sermon and I kind of marshal my will, and Josh says, why don't you go down for the altar call? And I'm like, okay. So I walk down there and there's this, I'm almost 50 or 51 at the time. And there's this kid, he was 28, but he looked 19. And he's giving me this invitation to come to Christ. And I say, well, I've studied the history of religion and, history of Christianity. I've got a Bachelor of Arts in History from UC Davis. And he's just smiling and he's looking at me. And I said, and I've got a lot of doubts, a lot of, And he just looked at me and put his hand on my shoulder and said, brother, Jesus can handle your doubts. And I said, yeah. And I said, well, I kind of mumbled a few more words. And he goes, hey man, it's all good. There's no pressure. He said, well, let me just ask you something. He goes, you walk out of here tonight, and God forbid something's to happen to you. Don't you want to know where you're going? And I'd heard people knock on my door and say things to me like that, right? Like, if you died today, you are 100% sure you'd go to heaven, right? But for whatever reason in that moment, that resonated with me. And it was in that moment that I became acutely aware of the fact that I have to have a savior. Like I have to have one. Like desperately need. It was undeniable. And when you're at that point, when I was at that point, and I wasn't quite yet ready to make that decision, that's a terrifying place to be. But the next thought was, you know what, I want him. Like I want him, I need him, and if I need him and I want him, and all I got to do is ask him. And so I made that decision, and I got down on my knees in tears and confessed and asked. Now, the Parkinson's wasn't immediately removed. There, I had been tithing, and it was, give 10%, you'll get rewarded 10 times more. Nothing miraculous happened, right? I didn't see lightning or anything like that. But a subtle shift started to occur. And as I continue to pray and meditate and go to church and meet with other people, fellow believers, and talk about Christ and the Word, an indescribable peace has come over me. And again, I want to share this with you, not to proselytize or preach. That's really not what this is about. But I have to be honest. This is the story that happened. So I have to tell the truth and tell you the true story. And this is the truth. So I have to share it with you. So faith is huge for me, right? Because it gives me a framework for understanding myself and my role in life, and a way of withstanding the horrible suffering in life, my suffering and other people's suffering. Perhaps that's enough on faith for now. I'll circle back to it at the end. So I'll talk a little bit about fitness, right? So what I've come to learn is that, and I played sports and growing up as a kid, but I've never been particularly into fitness, right? In fact, I was really annoyed by like the gym bros and the whole scene, right? But I found, and I read, and this, again, this isn't my opinion, this isn't like my speculation. I just looked at the evidence about strength training and diet and exercise and was like, wow, I was overwhelmed, And lo and behold, as I started to go to the gym and develop a strength training program and eat healthier, I started to feel better, like a lot better, like better thinking, better sleep, better energy. And again, this next part isn't to boast, it's just to demonstrate what's possible, even at this age with an incurable disease like Parkinson's, right? Like, why should you listen to me about fitness, right? So in about a 12 to 14 month period, I went from 185 pounds, 25% body fat, to 165 pounds, 15% body fat. I went from being able to barely bench 95 pounds 5 times to 135 pounds 5 times. And I've transformed the way I look and feel, but the biggest transformation is up here, right? I definitely don't want to preach to you about Christ, and I don't want to preach to you about fitness. But if I can say anything about it, like, the evidence is clear, and it's just overwhelming how dramatically a healthy diet and a regular strength training and exercise program will transform every aspect of your life. Like, if you're someone in this room that's like confronting your mortality or a disease or the death of a loved one, or you're starting to feel the aches and pains. I heard a doctor talk about this just the other night on one of the podcasts. And he was saying that strength training is literally the fountain of youth. It's the best anti-aging drug that we have. So I'm feeling myself, just a little internal monologue sharing here. I'm feeling myself not wanting to go on and on about strength training and fitness, but just know that It's something I'm super passionate about, and that has given so much meaning to my life and just made me happier and healthier overall, for sure. Let's talk about family. I think this is the one that's the most fun, and I think they can resonate, because everyone in here may not have a faith system or religious belief system. Everyone in here may not be going to the gym, but everybody in here has family and friends. And this is where I want to really dig in. So let me take another little sip of water here. Christ is awesome. He's my guy. He's my dude, right? Going to the gym is awesome. Lifting weights, eating right. But on the practical day-to-day of my life, it's the men in my life today. It's my family. It's my friends. It's the people that I have in my life today that give me immeasurable joy. The fact that all of you are here today shows me how wealthy I am. I mean, I couldn't believe it. As I put this thing together with Lauren, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but put this thing together, put it on Eventbrite, and I started watching the RSVPs. And I was like, man, even if 30 people show up, that'd be cool. So the fact that all of you took the time on a rainy Wednesday night to come hear this guy talk, it's tremendously humbling, and it gives me a feeling of tremendous gratitude. So what do these relationships with these guys look like today? And this is a way of encouraging everyone in here, because I think this is the message, or the part of the message that is the least threatening or the least intimidating, maybe. And my hope is to, if you're in this room and you're struggling with relationships or connection, to inspire you in that aspect, or in that realm. So these guys that I have in my life today are the type of people that I could literally call day or night, and they would be there. You may hear people talk about your ride or die, right? These are men that when I see these men and greet them, we hug each other, and sometimes we kiss on the cheek. These are men that we frequently tell each other how much we love each other. These are men where we go on these spiritual retreats together, and we go into the mountains and we talk about the steps and family and faith and cook food together and look at the stars. These are guys, just last weekend we were at a buddy's house just for a little mini workshop. The level of laughter that weekend, Danny's smiling right now, I'm looking at him. The level of laughter was unreal. And so it's, again, like I said, Jesus is great. He's my guy. I go to church. That's a huge part of it. I try to eat healthy and I work out. But for the most practical day-to-day thing, it's the people in my life, the people I encounter in my life, and the people that lift me up and encourage me. I mean, I can't say enough about it. So without going on too much about that, I'll talk a little bit about how I got to better weeks ahead. And then I want to hear from you guys, do a little Q&A. Let me just glance at my notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, we're good. And I think we're still good on time too. Oh yeah, very good. So if we just to get the timeline refreshed. So sobriety, August 15th, 2022, religious transformation, November 2023, continuing in sobriety and with Weeks Landscape. And by the end of last summer, I came to the conclusion, the realization that landscape is not my passion. I had a phenomenal, I had a phenomenal teacher in landscape, Josh Alexander. I worked for his company for about 5 years. Everything I know about landscape, I learned from this guy. I'm good at it. I've been successful at it. I've built a successful little business. I got a contractor's license. I'm proud of those things. It's awesome. But it's not what I love to do, and it's not what my natural talents and gifts are. Despite what you may be thinking at this point, this is where my natural talents are. I love to perform. I love to be on stage. I love to talk and speak and lead and motivate and inspire. And I know that that's true because by the end of last summer, I was in a little bit of a crisis. And my friend Josh Hill, who couldn't be here tonight, said, why don't you talk with my sister? She's a life coach. She's a career coach. And I kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, oh, whatever, I'm a career coach. He's like, dude, it'd be worth just a cup of coffee and a chat. So I met with Lauren at Pete's, and I heard her proposal, and it sounded solid. So she sent me some numbers, and I looked them over and what she was offering, and I was like, this looks good. So we sit down, and I'll just tell you a little bit about our first meeting. We meet via Zoom, and we get on there, and she goes, okay, what do you want to do? Like, what's your goal? What's your dream? Or what do you want? And this is what I said. This is in October. I said, by December 1st, I want to give a 30-day notice to all my landscape clients. And then by January 1st, I want to sell the landscape company, sell my truck, all my tools, be in a fabulous new job and driving a brand new Honda Accord. And she was like, yeah, okay. Is that really what you want? Yeah. She goes, do you have a resume? No. Well, you're going to need a resume. She's going to make me write a resume now. 45 minutes later, we had a resume, right? Like she's like, just start talking, right? So now I'm looking at a pretty cool resume. Well, we run out of time. We meet the next time. She's like, what do you really want to do? You mentioned that you like to perform. You mentioned that you like teaching. Like, what do you want to do? And so I was like, you know what? I want to be a motivational speaker. She's like, great, let's do that. Really? It's that easy? Yeah, it's that easy. You know? So we started working on it. And as soon as we started working on it, I didn't think Matt Herder for website or business cards, did I? Well, I thanked him now. Sorry, I had to pencil someone in there, and so someone else, not you. You were on the list. Pardon me. So as we started working on this, the level of excitement and joy that I got while we were working on it told me that this is what I need to be doing, right? So that when I went back to landscape, I was like, okay, and it gave me a new appreciation for it, and I'm grateful I have that, and I'm not going to just close that down today and be like, yeah, I'm the new Tony Robbins, you know? I realize it's going to take time and energy and effort to build, and I'm going to hear a lot of no's, but that's okay. Because I've already started working with the guy one-on-one, and I'm getting tremendous joy and fulfillment out of it. Tremendous joy and fulfillment. So even if I don't ever really make any money with Better Weeks Ahead, I've already had a joyful experience up to this point. Like the fact that you're all here and spending time, like, you know, because a lot of the guys that I've been listening to and following online, they're like, don't try to get into motivational speaking to make money. Don't make that your goal. Be like, okay, I want to make that, you know, like do it because you love it and you've got something to say. And I could be mistaken. I've been mistaken about a great many things before. I'll be mistaken about a great many things in the future, but I think I have something to say. I think I have something to share. I certainly hope I do. So we started working on Better Weeks Ahead, and this last couple months have just been amazing. You know, I'll sing Lauren's praises as I have before, like smart, funny, hardworking, results-driven, you know, holds me accountable. It's been a really cool process. And so this event tonight was an opportunity to get all of you here and kind of practice in a way, right? And to record it and then take some of that footage, put it on the website, because as I approach, you know, people to try to get paid speaking gigs, they're going to want to see you speak, right? So it's an exercise, it's a conversation. I hope it hasn't felt like a lecture or a sermon. I hope it's just been a demonstration of what I've gone, you know, a story, right? And yeah, I'm excited to be here with all of you guys tonight. And so the closing remarks, I would say, are if there's meaning lacking in your life, or there's a disproportionate level of suffering compared to the joy, a meaningful, rich life full of a lot of joy is far more possible than you might think. It's far more accessible than you might think. So if there's anything I can do to help where you're at on your journey, or anything you want to learn, you can call, text, hit me up on the website, reach out and talk. But that's enough. That's enough for me. I'd like to open it up for a Q&A. And before I do that, I just want to say, I was talking with Lauren about this before the meeting. In AA, it's not uncommon when someone shares in a similar but different way to what I've done, to when it goes for discussion, people say things like, oh my God, Megan, your share was so moving and compelling, and I love you, and I've watched your journey this whole time, and you're so cool, and that party you had. So this isn't like tell Paul how cool Paul is. I mean, if you're proud of me or you're happy, absolutely. But this is a time for you to open up and, as we say, get open, get honest, and get vulnerable, right? Talk about what's going on. I hate this phrase, but it's true. This is a safe space, right? It is being recorded and will go on my website, but feel free to ask me anything, literally. Like, and if I'm not comfortable answering, I'll just say I'm not comfortable answering. But you can ask me anything you want. Nothing is off the table. Thank you so much for coming. There's no pressure. You can just pass this. This is our working mic for the crowd, so I can hear you. Lauren, thank you, Lauren. This is the lovely Lauren Hill here of Curated Splash.
Does anyone have a question?
Did everybody look at once? I noticed that you mentioned involved in AA. Have you also been involved in Al-Anon?
Great question. So for those people in the room that don't know, so AA is Alcoholics Anonymous. Al-Anon is a fellowship for people who have friends or family members that are alcoholics, right? You can also be an alcoholic or a drug addict in Al-Anon, but it's a support system for people who, many of whom aren't alcoholics or drug addicts, to deal with their family members and friends. I've flirted with Al-Anon. I've never gone religiously. I was at a really cool, actually an AA meeting where they had an Al-Anon speaker first and then an AA speaker. And that was so much fun because you had the Al-Anon speaker get up and just totally trash all the alcoholics and rib them. And it was beautiful. And I mean, the laughter, but no, I'm not an active member of Al-Anon.
Hey, Paul.
Mark.
I'm thrilled to be here, man. And I'm just to see you on the stage and put this together. It's amazing. My question is, and I'd like to hear your answer because I think about these things for my own self. Why do you think it took what it took? For you to say, this is what I really want. I feel like a lot of us don't go for what we really want. We just say, well, this is before me. This is the thing. I'll just keep working, I'll just keep doing it. So, how did you get to that transition?
Wow, that's a great question, Mark. Thank you. That just jogged so much for me. Okay, so the way I got to that point was, growing up, again, without going back to the thing, I had several points to pursue meaningful things, right? Several opportunities. And this is going to sound like a cliche and an oversimplification, but drugs and alcohol, my decision to use drugs and alcohol and then being involved in that, surprise, surprise, I ruined a lot of those opportunities. So I was told I did theater in high school and played music and stuff. I was told very early on, like, dude, you should be in radio, you should be in theater, you should be in, So I wanted to do those things at some point, but the deeper I got in the disease of drugs and alcohol, the less it just became about the drugs and alcohol. So to answer your question more specifically, sobriety and the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you've never been in AA or you don't know what AA is, it can't be overstated how freaking awesome it is. It's incredible. It's about so much more than not drinking and using. That's just the beginning, getting the drugs and alcohol out of the way. It's about discovering yourself and just transforming. You're told that if you do the steps, you'll have a spiritual experience. And I have yet to meet someone who's done them and said, oh yeah, that sucked. That didn't work. They transformed me as a human being. They led me to Christ, ultimately. Again, that's just the truth. So why now? Well, 52, running a landscape business, Parkinson's, no wife, no family of my own, looking around and meeting with a group of men every Monday night that tell me the truth all the time, lovingly and sternly. And then going, man, I'm not happy doing this, and feeling that longing and that divine spark, if you will, or nudge from the divine to to take the step and be brave and do what I want to do. So yeah, drugs and alcohol and fear is what kept me from it for so long. Yeah. And I do know several people here, so I can call on people and say, you need to ask a question.
Hi, Paul.
Spartan.
I have two questions. As someone that's got some medical stuff, I would like for you to elaborate on how like the 3 F's are helping with your Parkinson's. And then if someone were to hire you as a life coach, like what is that going to look like? What's your plan? What's your process?
Wow, great questions. So the first one was just how is the 3 F's helping me with my Parkinson's?
Correct.
Right, okay. So again, right, so let me try to, because I have an idea for this question. Let me just talk it out with all of you if you'll indulge me, but I haven't fully articulated it.
What are the 3 F's?
Thank you. So the 3 F's, again, for review are family, fitness, and faith. So your family, your community, basically, fitness, diet and exercise, physical health, and that can include, mindfulness, meditation, whatever, yoga, broga, if you go with your buddies, and then faith, right? So what they do for me, and I'll try to give this in more of a polytheistic response, right, and not make it exclusive to Christianity. Having a faith, and we just know, just look at the literature, like having a belief system, having a cosmology, having a faith system helps you, right? That's why people have had faith systems for thousands of years, right? Because they're doing something for them, right? So the faith piece gives me hope, gives me comfort. You can't really separate them all. The faith piece ties into so many other things, right? So by being involved in the church, then I get some of the family component. I get the community, right? I get support and love from other people, right? So the faith piece is huge, right? The prayer, the meditation, and it just has practical neurological effects, right? Just look at the data on meditation and prayer and what they do for neurotransmitters in the brain and the blood pressure and all of it. I'm getting all worked up here. I gotta catch my breath. Just trust me. I know what I'm talking about. I do. And then, so that's, and then the fitness, let's drill in on that. Again, I don't want to sound like a fitness guru, right? And people are like, oh, I got to go to the gym. Okay, here's what it's done. So there's a medication called carbidopa-levodopa. It's a medication you take for Parkinson's. It's only effective for motor symptoms, which are movement. It's not effective for depression, anxiety, sleep, all that. It's just like street drugs. You have to continue to take more and more to get the same effect, right? And then eventually the side effects are worse than the symptoms it's supposed to alleviate. Strangely enough, if you've ever seen someone in the throes of methamphetamine addiction, particularly IV meth users, they're like this. That's dyskinesia. Heavy duty levodopa medication causes dyskinesia and involuntary movement. I didn't get sober to get that. Right? I've done that. So I've halved my Parkinson's medication, right? So I've cut it in half, right? I still take it. I'm not an all natural guy. I'm not up here saying, oh, I'm not on any medications, right? Better sleep, more energy, better focus, better flexibility. There's a direct correlation. I'm gonna pontificate a little bit here. There's a direct correlation between leg strength and longevity. The stronger your legs are, the longer you're going to live, and the greater delays in cognitive decline. That's not my opinion. It's just, I can't say enough of it. I'll try to wrap this up here. I recently got into running. Matt really got me into running. You've heard people talk about the runner's high, right? They say, oh, it's dopamine, it's serotonin. If you look at the literature, it's endocannabinoids. If you heard the word cannabis, you're right. Yeah, running literally gets you stoned. The feeling, and it doesn't take a lot, 2 to 3 miles, 3 days a week, you're going to get a distinct high. And then for the rest of the day, you're going to think more clearly and move more fluidly. You're also going to get plantar fasciitis, we didn't talk about. So I got some great arches for that, or great inserts for that, and I'm rehabbing from that, and can't wait to get back to the running. But I mean, the way I thought I felt great with the strength training. The way I feel when I'm running regularly, it's unreal. I mean, it's night and day. So I hope, and then the family and the friends, the support from my brothers, right? Like at any time of the day, I can pick up the phone and talk to another man and get love and support. I'm sorry, folks, that's all we have. We're out of time. I hope I answered your question there. Oh, and the coaching. The coaching is kind of on an individual basis, right? So there'd be like an initial 30-minute free consultation to talk about what your goals and objectives are, what problems or what things you're struggling with, to even decide if it's going to be a good fit, right? There's no hard sell. I learned from the best. I don't know where she went, but she's back there. There's no hard sell in coaching, right? Like, oh, you need to do this. No, that's not effective. It's not effective in getting someone sober, and it's not effective in helping. Well, here's what you need to do, now pay me to do that. So individual basis, 30-minute consult, talking about what you want, see if it's a good fit. And then I would present an offer for a period of time, 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever we decided to work on. Yeah.
Better. Thanks for sharing tonight. I have a question. I had a person that's had an abuse problem in my life for a long time, and I've not been in AA, so I don't really understand all the procedures, but I've always had this perception that somehow I should be expecting an apology from this person, and it's never come. So I make the assumption that the person isn't healed yet. So I wonder if you could speak to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's a great inquiry. Just a couple clarifying questions. Is this person still drinking and using, or are they in sobriety now?
Don't know.
Don't know. Okay.
They haven't apologized.
Okay. Fair enough. So, I'm sorry, what was your name, my friend? Clark. Thank you, Clark. So Clark's question speaks to what I think you're speaking to or alluding to is what's called the amends process. So within the 12 steps, there's step 9, which is made direct amends to others that we harmed, except when to do so would injure them or others, right? So if I cheated on my wife and she doesn't know about it, or she knows in a general way, it's not right of me to go and disclose all the gory details to her, right? Just to make myself feel better. She's like, I didn't need to know that. Again, I can use this example because I don't have a wife, right? But maybe that's a bad example, but okay, you're a father and a husband of 3 and you owe money, and if you go turn yourself in, you're going to go to prison and not be able to provide for your family. So why that person hasn't done that yet, it's one of 2 things. Either they're not clean and sober and they're not working a program, or they have what's called sobriety. So sobriety means they're sober, but they're dry. So someone is dry, they're not working a program of recovery. And you'll meet people like this. They haven't had a drink or a drug in 10 years, and you meet them and you go, dude, you need a drink. Like they're jerks, right? So just because we get clean and sober we say this, what do you get when you sober up a horse thief? A sober horse thief, right? So sobriety is about so much more than just getting sober. It's, man, looking at all the stuff that I did. So that person may never make an amends to you. They may not be sober, or they may be sober and they may not make an amends to you. The only words of encouragement I could offer, and I know this is easier said than done, especially coming from an alcoholic drug addict, is try to let go of that expectation, because that may never happen.
I really feel like I'm getting too old to keep holding this expectation that this is going to happen.
There you go, right? Like,
I feel like I need to let it go. It's a story I've been living with. It's not working.
I love what I just heard. It's a story I've been living with. It's not working. Yeah, I would, and I know that that's difficult. Again, I don't want to impose on your beliefs, but pray for that person, man. Pray. So we have something in AA called the son of a bitch prayer. When I'm angry, if I'm angry at Brian, I'm pissed off at Brian, My sponsor's going to tell me, pray for Brian to have everything you want for yourself for 2 weeks and watch what happens. And it works. So I would pray for that person. And who knows, maybe they'll make an amends someday.
Not doing
yeah.
Hello, Paul.
John.
Hello, Paul.
Johnny.
Thank you for your time. It takes a lot of courage to do what you do, it's very impressive.
Thank you.
My question is, you spoke about suicidal ideology, when you were in this dark place. And I know that mental health issues for those of us who have fought with addiction in our lives are parallel a lot of times. Can you speak on your mental health, maybe not necessarily the troubles, but kind of the end of the troubles and how you got out of that? And then furthermore now, throughout our days, we face fear, and fear can control us even if we're in the best sobriety space. So how do you deal with your fear daily in a sober, and as you can speak to the Christian side of it?
Okay. Thank you, John. So first in mental health, and again, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. So I'll just touch, right? So there may be a genetic link, right? So there's mental illness runs in my family, and I won't pull anyone's covers, but my grandmother who's passed, she really struggled with bipolar. So there's that. My parents had me in therapy when I was probably 13. I started taking antidepressants in 2008, but of course I wasn't sober. So what does it look like for me, and what's helped, and where am I at? And then the fear. I found that working with my psychiatrist to take less medication and not more was the first step. And again, I don't want to make any broad sweeping generalizations about medication, but I will speak about one in particular, and that's gabapentin. So as a clean and sober person, gabapentin is considered a safe thing to take, right? Because it's non-narcotic, it's not a benzo. So I trusted my doctor and was taking gabapentin. And as it started to be less and less effective, he said, well, we'll just raise the dose. So I got to a staggeringly high dose. And then as I start to look at the side effects of prolonged and high gabapentin dose, suicidal ideation, psychosis, agitation, paradoxical depression, and returning anxiety. And it was horrible, right? And so my psychiatrist worked with me to taper off and get completely off that. So that was a huge game changer for me, right? That was a huge game changer. So I won't speak more on medication, but you asked about dealing with fear, right? Like, man, Michael Pritchard said, fear is the dark room where negatives are developed. In recovery, we say that fear is the chief activator of all my other character defects, so that when I'm in fear, I'm way more likely to be selfish, self-centered, afraid, arrogant, prideful, I'm a mess. So what do I do about fear? Well, the healthier I've gotten physically through diet and exercise, the more involved I have gotten in my faith practice, the more involved I've gotten with my brothers and being of service and sponsoring other guys. Those things have given me so much joy and meaning that they start to eclipse the fear. Once I faced the huge fear in October of, wow, I really don't like landscape, it's not where I'm supposed to be, and stepped into that fear, Jordan Peterson, who I'm sure some of you heard of, he talks about you need to be willing to go into that darkest, most terrifying place that you're afraid of, right? That's where you've got to go into the cave and slay the dragon to get the emeralds and the gold and the princess. I'm still waiting for my princess. So I deal with fear by talking about it. If praying doesn't take it away, I talk to another man and I tell him what I'm afraid of. And he says something like, yeah, I can relate. I've been afraid of that too. I'm here with you. And when I'm able to talk about it, I don't feel as alone. And I'm also able to see that it's, once I put it out there, okay, I'll share a fear with you. I was afraid that this is how distorted my thinking still is. Please laugh. I was afraid that, you may have heard of the organization Stop Napa Hate. I was afraid that Stop Napa Hate was going to show up here tonight and say, we heard him use a racial slur 5 years ago and we're here to cancel him. Like, I had like this fleeting, like paranoid delusional thought. I'm just being honest, right? Like crazy, weird thought. If you're an alcoholic, you know that crazy, weird thoughts come up from time to time. And I got to laugh about that with my coach and laugh about that with my sponsors. Like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen, right? So when I expose fear in the light, it shrivels. Did that answer your question? Okay, I'm going to start calling on people. We still have time. Oh, we got it.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Good to see you up there. Good to see you kind of coming into your own, get comfortable. Yeah, my question for you was, how do you identify threats to your sobriety, to your serenity, and to your health? And how do you give space around those and allow them to not take the penalty?
Wow. Threats to my sobriety and my health and my serenity. So there's the logistical side of it, right? So if you're someone who's chosen to be sober and get into recovery, you restructure your life, right? So it's probably not a good idea to go hang out in bars or stop by your drug dealer's house just to tell them how good you're doing. Right? I've done that. Other people, oh, okay, I'll stay for one. It wasn't. So structurally, I've got that dialed, right? I mean, if I get invited to a party where there's alcohol being served, we talk about in the rooms, the problem has been removed, right? I haven't sworn off, it's been removed. So that's not a temptation or a worry for me. But if someone like dropped down a big bottle of OxyContin, for whatever, that's not going to happen. But if that were to happen, I would just leave, right, and call my sponsor. So structurally, my life looks pretty good today for eliminating those threats. The biggest threats come in my mind, right? Where the longer you stay clean and sober and the better your life gets, the more likely you are to have this thought. And this is all Orthodox AA. You know, it wasn't really that bad. I mean, I saw a guy crawling out of the bushes the other day, and I kid you not, I was like, he's probably got a cool little spot down there by the river. That thought crossed my mind, right? And then I get to go, wow, I'm driving a virtually brand new Toyota Tacoma and I own my own business. Praise God. And I'm sober and I have friends. Like, it's powerful when you have those. So there's the logistics. So the threats in my mind, I talk about them, man. It's prayer and talking. Please remove this. Thank you for removing it and talking about it, right? So threats, and then serenity. I don't tolerate toxic, narcissistic, negative people. You know, I'm not grotesque to them. I try to see if I can help them, but I don't surround myself with those kind of people. So today, I don't feel like I have too many threats to my sobriety or my serenity. And then you mentioned health. Well, I've talked about that, right? I go to the gym religiously. I mean, I pigged out on way too much Ben and Jerry's this weekend at the men's thing, right? I allow myself dessert one night a week. That's my little treat. But for the most part, I try to eat really clean. So those help eliminate those threats. Did that answer your question? Okay, yeah. And no one's obligated to keep sticking around. Like if you're like, dude, when are we getting out of here? Like, you can leave at any time. I'm here all night, 2 shows, one at 10 p.m.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing your story and helping motivate us. To that and motivation, I mean, talk about, falling off the horse and, getting back up on there again. So, it's the marathon, right? So it begins with, one step and you got to get up.
Yeah.
You got to take that step again. Just keep walking and doing that. There's been ups and downs. I mean, but right now, I mean, how is this? How do you stay motivated? How do you keep the trajectory, right?
How do I personally, or what are suggestions for others?
Let's make it a 2-part.
Okay, 2-parter. Well, I've shared that, right? And I'll expand on it, right? Like, for me, it comes down to having found that which I love and am good at just naturally motivates me. Like I was nervous getting up here. This talk still needs work. It can still be improved. But man, when I put on Kermit for you guys and was standing right outside there, I was like, dude, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like I know it in every fiber of my being because of how I feel. So how do I stay motivated? Man, I do the things that I talked about in the talk, right? I try to get good sleep, I eat, I exercise, and I try to stay focused on that which I love and I'm good at. And then the other way I stay motivated, man, is I don't stay motivated, right? Other people motivate me. Like before this talk tonight, several people texted me and they're like, dude, you're gonna kill it. It's gonna be great. I can't wait. And I'm like, this is incredible. So you motivate me. I mean, I'll tell this quick story. You were one of the first guys I met when I came in, and you were one of the first guys that showed me that guys can have fun in sobriety, and we went and hung out with Seth and at that event, and I saw how hard you guys were laughing and you were cracking me up. So the men in my life helped me stay motivated. Yeah.
I don't need a mic.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah, and I'm in with this. So,
Yeah.
love you, buddy.
Love you.
I'm glad you invited us. This is great. So now I know where that came from. We were up on that mountain. We talked about that dragon. I faced that fear. I went in there and faced it. Excited, right? It was awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Whew. So you're living your dream. And I've got to witness that. After tonight, where is that dream headed now?
Wow, that's a great question. Thank you. First of all, real quick, can I tell the mountain story?
I mean,
I'll only tell it if you're okay with it. You sure? Okay. Okay. I'll tell it. So this way, I'll tell it and you can cry. How's that? Okay. So I just want to tell this quick story. This is my life today. These are the people in my life today. So every year we go up on St. John Mountain. It's about 6,700 feet, Mendocino National Forest. You bring everything in, including your water, and you're pooping in the woods. It's our men's annual trip. It's incredible. One of the things we do is we have what's called a burnt offering. So during the seventh step, where you're basically trying to let go of things, we get around the fire and you can bring an effigy or something you want to burn or not, and you talk about it and you throw it in the fire, right? So Ken got up. I'm going to start crying. And Ken talked about how his mother died mysteriously, didn't know if it was suicide or overdose or accidental or what, when he was about 10 years old. And he held on to that for decades. He held on to that deep into sobriety and never dealt with it and never let it go. So that night he wrote a letter to his mom. And he came up to the fire, and I didn't see 60-year-old Ken around the fire. I saw a 10-year-old boy at the fire read a letter to his mom talking about, Mom, I wish you could have met your grandkids. You would have loved them. Mom, I'm doing so great. I don't know how you died, but I love you and I miss you. And then I watched him throw that letter in the fire. And then I watched him walk down that mountain, a different man. That's my life today. So now I figure, where do I go from here? Like I said, right, this high is going to wear off, right? I'm going to go home tonight like, I'm landscaping tomorrow, guys. It's going to be wet, right? It's going to suck. But I have an orientation now, so that when I'm pulling weeds, we were at Matt's parents' house just yesterday, I'm pulling weeds going, this sucks. I'm 52 with a degree from UC Davis and I'm pulling freaking weeds. It's like, yeah, bro, but you make great money and you live in the Napa Valley and you're sober and you've got a host of friends. Your life's incredible. So I'm just going to keep developing it. This, just to tell you logistics, a lot of this footage will go on the website, and I'm going to start running and gunning and hitting up nonprofits, companies, churches, corporations, private events, and pitching it to come and speak. And then continue to pitch the having conversations about the coaching piece. and develop it as aggressively and as passionately and as quickly as I can so that I can phase out Weeks Landscape as quick as possible. You guys ready to go home, or you want to hang out and talk a little longer? Okay.
So in our men's group, we coach each other, you know, and I just want to know where you think you'd be without that coaching.
That's the way. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the guy. This is Josh. Let me just take a moment. So Josh is talking about our Monday night men's group. We meet at his house about 5:30. There's about 6 of us, and we get open, get honest, and get vulnerable. It's not an AA meeting, but we're all in recovery. And we say things to each other like, wow, it sounds like you've really thought about that. I know you've talked to so-and-so and such, you've prayed on it, good decision, move forward. Or, you know what, man? We say things like, I think you're being dishonest. I think you need to look at your motives. I think you're in fear. I think that's a resentment. I think you need to do some work around that. Lovingly and sternly. Without that group, I would be a dead man walking. When Josh fired me the second time, I was in tears and I was stormed out of his garage, and he said, I'll see you tonight at group. I said, I'm not coming to group. He goes, buddy, I think you need to come to group. So the same man that fired me welcomed me back to his house 3 hours later, and I got to sit down and talk about it at group level in tears. Right? So I'm a dead man walking without you guys, and I've told you guys that. Absolutely.
I asked you because just to kind of give a little bit of value to the idea of life coaching.
Sure. Well, and I'm going to need to be starting to invoice you guys at our meetings. No, that makes me think of something. This is what I forgot to mention earlier. I am not a sobriety coach. Okay, if you or someone you know comes, how can I control and enjoy my drinking and using? Or can you tell me? You see this stuff online, right? You don't need to quit. AA sucks. Just learn how to drink like a gentleman. I'm not going to take your money. If you've got a problem with drugs or alcohol, or you know somebody that does, find me an AA and I'll take you through the steps for free. 12-step work is never to be paid for. It's against our traditions and it's against my values. If you want to talk about it, we can do that, but I'm not going to take your money for recovery. Well, it's 6:37. All right, we got another.
Thank you, Paul. I'm thinking about how I'm going to ask this question, but just work with me, guys. For the first 12 years of your life, you seemed like you had a really great upbringing, and it was religious, correct? But then you got into drugs, and that went away, it seemed to me. And then that one day, you went into our Father's house, and you heard that song. And things just came crashing down in a great way for you. My question is, did your mother and your upbringing between 0 and 12 just come flooding back, and you knew that your God was Jesus at that moment? Or did it take some time? And what would you recommend for someone who really wasn't raised in a very religious home to find that third step God?
Wow, awesome question. Awesome question. Now, keep in mind, folks, he asked the question, I got to answer it. So brace yourselves. So I should have clarified. So I grew up going to the First United Methodist Church, which as far as churches go, at least today, is quite liberal and progressive. It was liberal back then, but nowhere near where it is today. I was never forced to go to church. I was encouraged. I loved going to church. I loved the Sunday school stories. I loved some summer camp, best memories of my life. When I was 13, I went through confirmation, and I was the only one that didn't get baptized or confirmed, and I didn't join. So I'll say that. So was it my childhood rushing back in? I mean, I knew I had a pot. Okay, let's say I didn't have a negative experience with religion, right? But I didn't have to say I had a religious upbringing would be stretching it a little bit. You know what I mean? We didn't pray at home. My parents didn't. I didn't have to read the Bible. They didn't talk to me about Jesus. We just kind of went to church, right? So no, I don't think it was my childhood just coming all back in. I mean, the song was the catalyst, right? Because it's a beautiful song, and I remember my mom singing it. Again, I'm just answering the question truthfully here. So all of the world's religions, you can fact check me on this, but it's my recollection that most or many of them talk about or mention Christ in some way, shape, or form, right? The Buddhists say, well, he was an enlightened one, and maybe the Muslims say, well, he was a prophet, and this, these different faiths kind of acknowledge Christ, like, well, he's one of the ways, we're one of the ways, but he's one of the ways too, right? Christ doesn't acknowledge any of them. He doesn't mention any of them. He makes one profound claim, and he says, I am the way and the truth and the life. That's a profound claim. I'm going to do another talk on the history of Christianity and actually the historical evidence for the resurrection, which if you haven't glanced at this literature, it's powerful and overwhelming. And it's not coming from holy roller, white trash people and hillbillies, talking like guys with PhDs and, astrophysicists. And so my path to it has been as much intellectual as it is spiritual, as much emotion as it has kind of on the learning side. So now I'm getting lost in the thing. To the encouragement of the third step. So that's what that looks like for me. And the seed may have been planted as a child, but from my own explorations in studying religions and looking at them and what I've learned about the historical Christ, that led me to make that all contributed to me making that decision, right? In believing that he's the king. So words of encouragement on the third step. So the third step is made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. So in AA, you're welcome to believe whatever you want, right? And the reason you're doing that is because you've realized that you're out of control and you have no power or control and you need something, and it can be the group. People say God is group of drunks, great outdoors, good orderly direction. So the big book talks about just searching, right? So if you're even remotely willing to believe that there's something more powerful and greater than you, then you're on your way. The book goes on to talk about, right, who hasn't felt the love for a friend or seen a beautiful sunset, and then it says, in the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. And the there they're talking about is inside. So the big book tells you that God is within you, that every human being has a divine spark in them. That's a beautiful idea, whether you're a Buddhist, Muslim, Jew, or Christian. So I would encourage you to look at what role is ego and pride playing in standing in the way of you taking that step, right? Is it fear? Is it ego? Is it pride? Have you not conceded to your innermost self? And ask other people what their higher power is. Was that helpful?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Hi, Paul.
Anthony.
I have a question for you. What is something you persevered from, like at any age group, any time in your life, and not with substances? I want to ask you something different. Like, what is something where even if you didn't end up in the happier state you are now, at any age time, is like, I had a problem, I solved a problem, I found a solution, and I came out better and stronger. Can you give me something?
Wow. That's not related to drugs and alcohol? I don't know if I can, man.
Didn't you go to college?
I did.
So, something like that or anything.
Okay. I see what you're getting at. So, yeah, so self-will, for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, I hope I'm not patronizing, right? Anyway, everybody know what self-will, like self? Sorry, that was awkward. Self-will is a powerful thing, right? Like Paul can do a lot on Paul's power, right? And Paul's an intellectual and he was a good student. So, I mean, I guess to try to answer your question, I mean, I got through Davis because I believed enough in what I was doing and believed that it was going to give me something that I wanted, that I was willing to stick it out. Despite it being challenging and difficult and wanting to give up at times. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that was a good one. College is really hard.
College is a challenge, yeah. But aside from drugs and alcohol, because you asked, is there been something where, you really persevered through these? I gave up a lot of times, on a lot of things. I'll tell one quick story. Got into wrestling, 6th grade. My dad teaches me how to wrestle. I'm a big fish in the little pond at the Napa Boys and Girls Club. So this guy from our church is like, well, you need to go compete. There's a regional competition. So I went to my first wrestling match, and I walked in there like I thought I was the best and the baddest. And my first match, I got whooped. And I started crying. I broke down in tears and ran out of there. And my dad came out. He's like, you haven't been disqualified. Like, you still need to go back in there and finish the rest of your matches. And I didn't want to. And I tell that story as kind of something that kind of marked my life, where like when things were really difficult and painful, I gave up. Yeah.
Thank you. I like that.
Yeah. Greg.
Hey, Paul.
Greg.
I overcame a lot of things in my life. I was a casual and heavy binge drinker. I did that. It's hard. I had 4 kids that loved me. My neighbor kids, I loved them too. So I drugs. No, my problem was food. The food gave me 4 strokes. Couldn't drive for 10 years, couldn't speak at all for 10 years. Now my problem is socially. Okay, you say I can't drink, I can't do drugs, everybody understands that. But everybody eats. As you know, I'm a food nut.
Yep.
That's the recipe. So no death food, no processed food. I'm surrounded by the church especially. They eat like crap.
This is true.
I joke. I always sit around saying they pray for their dying friends. They get off on that. They seem to enjoy it. Oh, how I just straighten your life out. They don't see it. So how do you handle when you meet fierce opposition? Like at my church, I'm hated by 20 people. They can't stand me because of my food. Just gotta eat different. They can't stand me. How do you deal with the peer pressure?
That's a great question. So for those of you who don't know Greg had me on his show called Back from the Edge. Back from the Edge is his journey back from the edge, where he was on death's door with a stroke and completely transformed his physical health and walking and talking and all this through diet. Are you still totally vegan, or are you doing some of the?
We started with the video guy, Josh Jackson, Jordan Rubin.
Nice.
Very healthy, but still clean free.
Sure.
Only European cheese and raw milk.
Hallelujah.
I even ran into trouble with church over my raw milk. They said they banned me from bringing it.
So Greg had me on his show, and real quick before I forget, 2 people that you should definitely talk to before you leave tonight are these 2 people right here, Patty and Jerry. This is not a plug. I'm not going to mention the product by name because I'm not trying to, do endorsements or anything like that. But they introduced me to a line of products that are phenomenal, and they're 2 people that are followers of Christ, super passionate about food and health, and have helped me. And they can. So after the thing, you guys should talk.
I love it. Thank you.
What was that? We're done. What's that? Oh, and Alex's phone's about to die. Okay. So opposition, man. I lived in opposition to so many people for so long, and I was the opposition. and I touched on this when I answered Zane's question. I just try to structure my life to where I don't have those people in it. And when I do run into those people, even if they make me angry, I really try to just love them from afar. I don't have to like them. And, there's a time and a place for confrontation, and I do love to argue and debate. But what I've found is that emotionally, I can't withstand the arguing anymore and the debating. So I just, hey man, if that's what you believe, that's cool, because I just get too worked up. So there's not a lot of opposition in my life, and I just try to be civil and get away from those people.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You guys are sticking in here for the long haul, huh? Okay, maybe that's it. Any more questions? I was hoping there'd be one or two hecklers here tonight, so people can say some things. Well, if there's no more questions, we don't need to close with anything fancy or formal. I just want to say once again, I want to go down the thank you list one more time. So thanks to Dennis Cooney. See, I'm not a member here, so I had to get a sponsor for this event, a member that was someone here. So Dennis Cooney for sponsoring this event, Alex Weeks for audiovisual, Kate for the microphone, Lauren Hill, coach, Matt Herder for website and business cards, Kevin Fraser photography, and family and friends and clients. This was a huge joy for me. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.